Hi everyone, and those online, welcome. The Human-Centered Design UAE Meetup. My name is Jonathan Steingesser. I'm head of design at Property Finder. If we didn't get a chance to chat, then grab me after or connect on LinkedIn. Happy if you've got any suggestions for the future, anything you want to hear, you want to do a talk, please reach out.
Isn't it this one?
We did like a 3-hour rehearsal, which was all amazing. But like a lot of things, everything works in rehearsal, and then there we go. Thank you.
Magic touch.
Huge thanks to Lean, Dave, and the whole Atelier team. It's really amazing to be in person again. We're really excited. This is our first in-person meetup since February or March last year. So we've been online since then. And now we've moved to a hybrid. We're both online because we're always against kind of online. I love the in-person, but now we built actually a bit of a community outside of the UAE, which is quite amazing. So the session's being recorded. If you have to leave, we have a YouTube channel, so you can find it later. Besides myself, we've got Asad, he's somewhere, there he is. One of our other co-organizers. Nada is on the line, and unfortunately Greta can't make it. So yeah, thank you to all of you. They're also behind the scenes helping with the socials. We're kind of everywhere, which is not a great social media strategy, but we are a non-for-profit, so I think that's okay. Predominantly, I think it's Instagram. So if you're on the socials, if you want to find us, tag us, continue the conversation, that'd be great. So a little bit about our speaker. I don't want to talk too much. We're here to hear from Zinka. She's a professor of arts design and the associated dean at the College of Architecture, Art and Design at American University of Sharjah. She's also the head of the department. So congrats on your
You're newly appointed. Yeah.
She's an educator and an expert in the cognitive pedagogy of experiential education, focusing good one, eh? On a practice, on the social emotional aspect of teaching and learning. She's got a PhD and has more than 20 years of experience. And she's also the founder of the Teach Studio platform that serves to promote emotional pedagogy as a way of strengthening education and building positive relationships with students. She's going to tell us a lot more about what she does. Very excited to have you. Thank you so much. But just before we hear from Zinka, again, massive thanks. I want to share with all of you this amazing space. I came a little while ago when they opened, and it's really exciting again to be here. So I'm just going to hand over to Lean. She'll tell us a little bit about the logistics of the space. Thanks, Lean.
Hi, welcome. My name is Lean, and you're at Atelier, if you didn't already figure that out. And hi to everyone on Zoom. Just a reminder that that is your Zoom account, so you can look at them, talk to them. If anyone else wants to take a little wave, that's where to do it. Quick note about Atelier. I don't know how many of you have been here before, or if you've been following us, or if you know anything about us. We are a community-powered organization, a creative organization. We have a design studio that does all kinds of amazing strategic human-centered design, which is very relevant to today's meetup. But we're also a community of creatives, technologists, designers that come together in this space, collaborate, work together. It's a membership-based community. If you have any questions about how to become a member, come to me, come to Dana, she's somewhere. I think she's moving in her car, actually. Emirates Towers problems. But welcome, and yeah, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We have Gülin from the team, from the studio team, and a bunch of collaborators. Hitan has worked with us. So you can, I think the best way to learn about Atelier is to just talk to people about it. But you can also follow us on Instagram. We're at atelier.dxb, and if you take any photos tonight, please tag us so we can repost and we can keep track. As Jonathan said, this is actually the second event that we host together, but it couldn't be more different than the first one. Yes. The first one I had just joined. I think I was like 2 days into the job. I had just come back to Dubai, and we had I guess, part of our team. Yeah, 50 people in a tiny Astrolabs room. And, but it was really fun. We had a great panel. But we just launched this space about 2 months ago, and we're really excited to be hosting in person and virtually again. We're testing out these crazy hybrid models, so bear with us if we have any technical difficulties. And bathroom, little housekeeping, bathroom is right around the corner, literally just walk left and then left again. We ask you to keep your masks on unless you're enjoying the punch and the popcorn, just to be extra safe. A lot of us might be vaccinated, but just in case. And that's it. Very fast intro. Wonderful. I'm going to pass it on to Zinka. Thank you, Zinka, for being here. Super excited to hear what you have to share with us. And one more thing for the people on Zoom, if you have any trouble, just use the chat. We won't be able to hear you, but we're monitoring the chat. Nada's on there. You can see her name, organizer. She will, figure any issues out there. And yeah,
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Zinka.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Lean. Thank you, Jonathan. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this, for me, very important event, because it's the first time in a while that I'm actually giving a lecture and teaching and seeing people, not just a black screen with avatars. So that we can definitely enjoy the energy and enjoy the discussion, hopefully afterwards. So today I'm talking about something that I'm very passionate about, which is how to cultivate creative confidence. And I will start by telling you a bit about myself. So it's not typical photo and text. The reason is I wanted to sort of give you a brief introduction in a creative way, so that you can see how creativity actually influenced my life and my life journey. So it has been everything but linear. I have started with studying visual communication, graphic design, and then I sort of got bored of just designing static items at the time, because I don't even remember, we didn't have computers. Yeah, I'm that old. And then I wanted to do something a little bit more dynamic, and I discovered passion for film and video, and did my master's in video editing and production. And then somehow got into teaching and started developing my teaching career. And this is something I'm very passionate about even today. And sorry, yesterday I went to check my eyes. I obviously getting old. I'm having this. I guess, yeah, it's just a minute. And then obviously starting to research, because I have been involved in teaching for so long and have been doing it relatively well. We have my ex-student here, so hopefully he'll attest to what I'm saying. I'm kidding, but I was always passionate about it, and I wanted to see what is it that I'm doing that's working. And then I started researching pedagogy and focusing on student motivation, on teaching practices that actually promote student motivation. And that's how my sort of journey into these other disciplines that as you will see through the talk, all intertwine together. So that's creativity and curiosity, and form these values that are in the middle that I'm very passionately engaged in, which is motivation, empathy, self-awareness, and care. So we have here also business communication and leadership, something that I have been also teaching about and researching. And I make a living from real estate and interior design. So it can't be more colorful, almost you would think crazy. Is it okay? Is the mic okay? But I want to make a point that this is something that has happened very intrinsically for me, because I was always passionate about many things, and I never wanted to stop myself from pursuing something that to me made sense. to someone, it wouldn't, because you would think, okay, if you already are a teacher or a professor, why bother? Why try something else? But this is what I think we will all end up doing because of the fact that we're all becoming lifelong learners. Education does not stop anymore after you graduate from university, get your master's or PhD. I'm learning more today than I did ever before. So with that, we cannot just be focused on one single narrow field. We will organically open up. And this is just like a premise of today's talk, creativity. It's not ability to draw or to paint or being artistic. Creativity today has a completely different connotation. It's the mindset, it's the way we think, and it's that courage to be true to yourself and to stand out. I am from Bosnia, from Sarajevo. I have lived in Canada most of my life and came to UAE for a year just for, to test it out, see how it is. And here I am 9 years later. I'm loving it. It's my home. And hopefully I'll stay here as long as possible. We'll see. But as I said, this is not a typical introduction, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have later on. Maybe some of you have seen this test. It's I think from 1945. It's a typical creativity test. And I want you to test your creative thinking abilities. If you know the answer, don't say it now. We'll come back to it at the end. So using the various objects that are provided on the table, your job is to attach a candle on the wall to ensure that no wax drips either on the table or on the floor. And, just look at it and see if you can come up with a solution by the time we're done. So it has to be attached to the wall without the possibility of anything dripping down. So think about it and we'll get to it. So I'll talk about today, what is creativity? I'll give you some tools and techniques, and I will talk about creative confidence in the context that I've just briefly introduced. How many times have you guys been creative today? What do you think? If you think, is it, yeah, 5, 6, 1? You may think that you haven't been creative at all, but the truth is that we all come across problems and opportunities every day that require our creativity to be solved. And you can think about the small problems you've solved. Maybe the door was slamming as you were sleeping and you were annoyed, and then you put a slipper in between, or the cat was scratching your couch and then you covered it with some material. Or you just winged a recipe from, not from a recipe book, but you just use the ingredients that you had in the counter. All of those are creative endeavors. So creativity is not just about solving problems. It's about seizing opportunities that we all come across, seeing those problems as challenges and opportunities. Creativity has been a topic of discussion and research since roughly 1950s, and I will just give a brief history on that. And it's the most complex topic to sort of investigate, because we still don't know how to measure it, where it comes from, because we're all different and we all envision it and express it in very different ways. We have to think, what makes people creative? All these questions. How can it be measured? How can it be enhanced? Is it a talent? Is it an ability? Is it like a field in itself? Is it inborn? Are we born creative? Can we acquire creativity? All these questions are still, that's why it's a hot topic, and it's very important topic to raise awareness about, because as I will mention in a second, it's a #1 skill that employers are looking for these days, ability to be creative. Psychologists have been concerned with the research of what happens in the human brain when we're actually being creative and when we're expressing creativity, under which conditions. What are some things that inhibit creative production or creativity, creative expression? These are all the things that I'll give my modest contribution today to try to not resolve and give a definite answer, because the beauty of it is that we can all interpret it in a different way. And as long as we're questioning it, we're definitely on the right track. So we have three definitions of creativity here that are quite different and date from 1952, where actually the research in creativity has started. Guys, do you want to sit in front? Like still there's space, huh? Instead of standing. Yeah, okay. Current research on creativity actually suggests that creativity, it can be developed. It can be enhanced with certain effort and practice. And this is, Liam, there's someone at the door. Sorry. This is in contrast with the original research of the 1950s and 60s, where even, in 1990s, this is when the research kind of substantially evolved. And it was thought at the time that creativity is, you are creative or you're not, and it's you're born creative, and there's not much you can do about it. And still, creativity remains to be one of the least understood topics, as I mentioned. So just a brief overview, so you understand about the whole context of people approaching creativity. So obviously, the pre-14th century until the Renaissance, human expression was thought to be kind of divine. And anything creative would come from God. It was not, people were just vessels. And at that time, people or artists would not even dare to sign art because it wasn't theirs. And it changes in the 14th century, when Michelangelo and Da Vinci are actually starting to sign their work. And in the 17th century, creativity was obviously not as divine characteristic, but it was thought that only few people, selected ones, had the opportunity to be creative. It's interesting that Greek philosopher Plato actually coined the term that was divine madness, when people would actually express themselves creatively, so that we're not, or artists were not responsible for the work. It was the work of God. And there's an anecdote that Van Gogh actually thought that his arm was possessed at the time when he was painting, that he had nothing to do with it, and he was not involved in the process. Or Kipling, when he wrote Jungle Book, he felt that there was like a beast next to him, and he wouldn't even move much because he was afraid that he would scare the beast away, so he would lose his mojo and would stop writing. So it was really thought about as a sensitive, delicate process that needs to be preserved and maintained. So just again, very brief overview. In the early 20th century, Freud dwelt into creativity, and he felt that it resulted from the tension between the ego and the superego. This was good, obviously, because it made it more obvious that everyone is creative, because we all have ego and superego. But while he was illustrating his point, he used examples like Da Vinci and Einstein, for example. So people were still not able to relate, because not everyone is feeling like Da Vinci or Einstein. So still it was thought of as something that was not applicable widely to everyone. And during the 1950s, thinking on creativity changed and sort of started moving the question along the lines of asking if it's inborn or it could be acquired. How do we actually produce such extraordinary output in whatever area we're discussing, and what is the criteria that we use to judge creativity? Even today, as I said, measuring creativity is very difficult because it's so intangible and it's so subjective, and it's left to interpretation. So, this is my belief after all the research that I've done. I think doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. And I think when we sort of wrap up this journey tonight, ultimately what I'm going to be pointing out to is only our own opinion and how we feel about what we feel about creativity, how creative we feel. And this has to do with that confidence that I will touch upon. So just some more theory to put it in context. There's something that's called 4 Ps of creativity, and it's by James Rhodes. And he came up with this back in 1961. And he was an educational scientist who pursued research in creativity very extensively at the time. And he read all the books, magazines, all the papers, and he was on the quest to just pinpoint like a singular definition of what creativity is. So he wasn't able to. He after all the research that he's done, there was no clear-cut answer. But he did come up with 4 Ps that are still used in theory of creativity as person, product, process, and press. Press means environment. So you can see in the diagram here, this is what influences, in his opinion, are the creative process, the framework, and of definition of creativity. So he looked at the characteristics of people who were creative, and he found that they shared the ability to take risks, number one, like the most important aspect, and that they were very curious and they were able to nurture that curiosity, something that I connect strongly to. They were always willing to try new things. They were not stuck in routines, and they were, freely willing to experiment. Most importantly, they were not afraid to make mistakes. And this is something that I will point out later on when we talk about creative confidence, because I think we are all, being blocked by something. And usually it's that fear of making a mistake, fear of being judged, and so on. So he found that creative environments were actually the ones that allowed people to just be playful, were made out of people who were supportive, who were encouraging, who were just allowing this kind of open-minded approach and nurturing it along the line. So obviously in the 21st century, we're witnessing these, like an increased understanding of what creativity is from different domains such as psychology or neuroscience. And we're seeing great advancements in augmented reality, artificial intelligence, all these things that are by most people kind of associated with creativity and creative endeavors. There's an interesting fact. There was a study done by 1,500 CEOs, I think by IBM, and it was concluded that creativity is the #1 skill that is required, as I said, in professional environment. Creativity is one of the top 3 skills, according to many studies. And interestingly enough, it's going to be part of many jobs that are going to emerge by 2030, they say, and 85% of those jobs at this moment do not exist. So imagine how rapid the movement and evolution will be, because our lives and our businesses are evolving so quickly. So this is why I think it's very important that we all connect with this creativity and are able to embrace it and practice it. So before I get into myths about creativity that are always, present whenever, you would ask someone who's not maybe within creative disciplines, what does it mean to be creative? They would say, taking like a painting class or drawing or, something related to arts, but it can't be further from the truth. Creativity is something that comes naturally to everyone. We were all creative when we were kids, and it's not encouraged in our educational system worldwide. And I will talk about that in a second. But here you have some examples of what creativity helps us with and why it matters. So it helps us motivate ourselves. Creative people are kind of thinking in non-linear way, and they're used to express themselves in different ways, whether it's journaling or some sort of activity, and they're able to shift their thoughts from their head into something that's more tangible, and which gives them a better sense of who they are and increases this self-awareness. And this sort of ties into their ability to express themselves through any activity that is chosen. So these are the 4 common myths about creativity. So myth number 1 is that, as I said, it's about artistic expression. Do you think doctors or entrepreneurs or politicians can be creative? Yes, absolutely. Like doctors can be creative in the way that they think about a problem. They approach it from a different angle. When they, for example, diagnose diseases, it requires creativity because of this, not being creative meaning when you just keep to a linear approach, the one you're used to, you're into your routines, you're comfortable there, you're not used to going around and looking at things from a different perspective. Can politicians, for example, when they're developing new policies, they can use creativity because, again, they're looking at the problem or the solution from a different perspective. Managers, people in marketing, any discipline, when you think about it, can apply creativity. So the second one is that only a small segment of population can be creative. Obviously, this is, when you think researchers who study creativity sometimes refer to creativity, we have big C and little c, and maybe you've heard about that. It's actually not true because we are all creative. Big C creativity refers to solutions that are widely accepted and acknowledged. So it could be a new software or anything that's used by a large number of people, part of population. little c creativity is actually something that whoever doesn't feel creative can begin with. It's the solutions, small solutions that actually just cater to us, that make sense for us, whether it's the way you arrange your cups in a cupboard, or, make some solutions that are applicable to you. And definitely this is something that we should all embrace and continue to practice. Creativity comes in a flash of insight, another myth, because whoever is creative, and most of us are here, we all know how difficult it is sometimes, and that it's something that has to be worked on and nurtured all the time. Because yes, we have these moments of inspiration, but creativity, being creative is a practice. And, we could have that aha moment in the shower, or, wherever we feel creative when we're thinking about it, but it's a more studious approach. And what I'll talk about today is how to sort of get into this habit of practicing creativity, doing it. It's like a muscle training, and something that, we have to work out to feel good, to be healthy. The same goes for creativity. And the fourth one is that we cannot teach it. There's no doubt that babies come into this world, right? When we all think of little kids, they're full of curiosity. They're full of wonder. They're interested in everything, and they want to touch things. They want to interact and explore, understand. But some people might think that the best way to support children, and I agree with that, being an educator, is to sort of get out of the way, because I personally feel, and I very much agree with Sir Ken Robinson, who I really admire, that schools do kill creativity, and very systematically. And creativity can be taught in a way where I don't agree that we could kind of standardize teaching creativity, because that would still mean implementing rules and regulations, which is going to lead in some sort of towards some sort of stress response and some pattern thinking. But if it means staying out of the way so that people can actually reach in and develop their own creativity and find those pathways that will liberate them, then absolutely. Because the way we are approaching education, we are not just not teaching it, but we are killing it. There's something that I also want to mention here, which is the left brain versus right brain myth, and I'm calling it a myth. Many of you have heard. Okay, I'm better. I'm a left brain person. I'm better in technical disciplines, or versus I'm a right brain person. I'm very artsy, and I like to be creative. There's nothing wrong with that. This concept has been used to help us understand why some of us are a little bit more artsy or intuitive, or some are more scientific, but there's a danger in that. And danger is in labeling yourself. Because when you're young, when you're 10 or 12 or 14, when you're just forming an idea about yourself, your ambitions, your capabilities, being told that you're a right brain person automatically puts you in that category where you think that you cannot really do other things. And we know that, and I will not go in depth into growth mindset. Many of you are familiar with fixed versus growth mindset by Carol Dweck, that this is where it starts, when we're actually told, oh, you're really good at that, and you're not so good at this other stuff. So whether it's by family members or by teachers, we create these beliefs that are very strongly rooted in us, and that are actually the main cause of these dysfunctions later, and a low self-esteem, no belief in our abilities. So we sort of need to rewire. This is why, saying that I'm a techie and implying that I don't really, do that artsy stuff, says who, since when? Right? So you always have to ask yourself a question when you make a label like that based on your abilities and skills. How do I know this? Because I've tried a few times and failed. and this is that type of mindset that really needs to be developed. Because again, going back to my first slide, my chart of me doing all these crazy things and, thriving in all of them and being happy and still being curious and still being on the lookout of different things. Yeah, okay, I might not get into physics and, maybe some other things because of that, labeling and the way that I've grown up, that I'm trying to fight now. But everything we tackle, everything we want to learn, we master. In the beginning, everything is hard, right? Think of the learning curve. Everything begins with the unknown, and then slowly we get the hang of it. Once you understand it, once you start to practice it, you develop this confidence, and it starts to feel good, and you start to want to do it more and more. So let's say if I bring up again Einstein, he was what would you say? Was he a right or a left side person? Left side, right? Scientist. But don't you think he had to have the right side as well? Very active to be able to think the way that he did. So just an example to think about. So this is the biggest myth. You might have comfort zones. You might have some personal limitations, but they're not necessarily what defines you. And final thing I would say is that you have to be careful not to confuse your preferences with your abilities, because testing your ability is, again, being an educator, I see that all the time. I see students who just think, I'm not good enough, I'm not good at this. They didn't even try properly. So think about how to develop that ability. I might have a preference, and that's fine. I'm not into this, but it doesn't mean I'm not able. It just means my life journey led me in this way. So as I said, we are all born creative. And what happens? Our job, I think, is not to cultivate their creativity. Our job is not to crush it like we do right now. Unfortunately, I'm witnessing it, and I can't really talk against educational system. Obviously, I'm part of it. There's so many great things. There's so many great people who are definitely doing their best to enhance the ways we teach. But primarily, I'm talking about elementary school, even kindergarten. It's been proven that it happens around the 4th grade. There was a lot of research done that tests kids' creativity and their potential. And they found that up until the 4th grade, everyone thinks they're creative. And it's interesting, actually, there was research in 1968 where NASA developed a test that would measure the creativity of potential NASA scientists and engineers. And then they came up with a test that involved this divergent thinking that I'll talk about, and many of you are familiar with that concept. And it's the ability to look at the problem from different perspectives, right? So they had no right answers, but it required test takers to come up with as many ideas as possible. So they obviously went to, I think around 1,600 children to a primary school and gave the test to all of them. And they were around ages 4 and 5. And full 98% of the kids were reaching that top level, fully creative. Then they waited about 5 years and gave the test again to the same children that were part of the research in the first round. And unfortunately, only 30% of them were actually performing on the same level. Just think, so almost from 100% to 30%. By the time they were 15, the number dropped to 12. And by the time that, they gave the test, I think, to around 300,000 adults later. And what do you think the number was? So 2% of adults were at that same level. So it really speaks a lot of a problem that we have. So this is what happens. The conclusion, I guess, can be that non-creative behavior is learned, and learned very well, because by the time we're adults, we all lose it. So, as I said, what happens? Schools happen, and this sort of illustrates the problem in a funny way. The main problem is that we start to associate failing with something really bad, and where we start to become very afraid of it. So to become creative again, we need to give ourselves the permission to fail, and we need to stop looking at failure as an indication that we should not continue, that we should stop. This is not for me. I failed. Okay, that's it. I'm not going to try again. This self-awareness and confidence is so important, and this is why, you know, there's a lot of talk about today, like getting yourself and looking at it from this sort of like self-help, soul enhancement perspective. But it has, believe it or not, a lot to do with creativity, because creativity can, again, help us discover ways through which we can personally thrive, and you know, discover what we're passionate about, and what are, if we're on the right path, listen to that gut instinct. But the biggest problem is, you know, when we're in school, we're sort of being compared and judged. And if we're not being judged, we judge ourselves against the others, because you're always sort of in this environment where you're taught to fit in. You're not taught to stand out. You're not taught to speak up. You're taught to stay safe and sort of, you know, like go with the mainstream. And as much as you can, prevent yourself from making a mistake, because then you're going to be pointed to, you're going to be ostracized, you're going to be, you know, punished in a way, whatever that implies. So what we need to learn to do is embrace the unknown, and in my opinion, increase our kind of, you know, desire to become playful again, and to really sort of spread this idea among the communities and groups of people that you're interacting with, because we're as good as people around us. And if it starts from one person, or, you know, and then it spreads as an energy or attitude or value, or you know, look at the perspective of the world, it's really going to make an impact. When a child, for example, how does that happen? You know, when a child is starting to do something and learning to do something, what do parents usually do, or teachers? They come in and they want to help. And then this is how the creativity is killed. And what does a mom say? I mean, I'm as guilty, because I remember doing that to my daughter before I knew better. Now I do, obviously. She's 14 now, so it's a little bit too late, but she's okay. She's creative enough, I hope. But what do we say to them? We say, no, that won't work. No, don't put the box there. Don't change it. No, this is how you do it. But actually, you know, what if she was right, or he was right? And the biggest problem is, and this is what's happening in the business world as well, is that we are programmed to judge all the ideas immediately when they pop out, right? And we are quick to form an opinion, quick to judge, quick to voice it, and then we break that beautiful cycle of creation that might lead to something that is actually very interesting and substantial. So, you know, you can have positive judgment, you can also have negative judgment, but I think, you know, it's really important to maybe become aware of this, and maybe in the next week or sometime catch yourself thinking or voicing it out, saying something where it was maybe premature. Another thing is, you know, when we're talking about feedback, when someone is actually soliciting feedback, asking you for opinion, then you could be invited to give it. But we often do it without that person asking us. We just say, oh, this is what I think, and you sort of feel invited. And we should kind of try to defer judgment. And this is one of the most important practices of creativity. Defer judgment, not just when you're judging someone else's work, but also when you're judging yourself and your own work. Allow the process to continue and to flourish. So I would say, instead of, we have these very analytical minds. So we're always sort of scanning, sorting, categorizing based on our preconceived notions how things should be. And this is what kills creativity. Release it and sort of liberate yourself from that. Take things as they come so that you really look at it from, the point of view where you ask yourself, let me try this. I don't know until, I try and maybe you'll find something fascinating. As a consequence of this system that we have been a part of, and kids today are a part of, is that we, grow up being afraid of making mistakes, being criticized or failing. We have high pressure to perform and produce immediate results, especially today. And I'm seeing such high levels of pressure and anxiety in students today, in this, need to instantly be perfect, be good, or, I'm a total failure if I don't satisfy my standards, if I don't perform up to my standards that have been imposed by the society, by the media, by everything around them. And personal beliefs and values, attitudes, biases. So, the uncertainty that we feel basically makes us feel uneasy. And what we need to do is rediscover imagination, embrace this uncertainty, and be in a position where we are not rejecting any ideas, like, let's say again, in the professional environment, create these sessions and embrace this atmosphere of uncertainty so that people can actually be invited to share even the craziest ideas and looking at, problems from a divergent perspective. So fear, as I said, is the number one barrier to creativity and innovation. We're afraid that people are going to ridicule us, that we will fail, we will make a mistake, we will not be promoted, we will mess it up, we will lose our safety net, our senior leadership will not appreciate us anymore, and most importantly, we're all very much afraid of the unknown. And so basically, we need to remove this either-or mentality. So this was like a brief introduction on creativity, and now I will be talking about some tools that could potentially help you unlock these new ideas and augment this innate creativity that we all have. So thinking about or talking about thinking styles, a little bit of psychology here. I'm just keeping it light. Methods of thinking have evolved throughout the history, these different methods have been demonstrated by ancient Greek philosophers, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and they're also shared by many entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs today. And these are thinking styles that have been labeled by psychologists as helpful or unhelpful. Obviously, these can be kind of derived into many more elements and much more complex scheme. But for the purpose of this presentation, it's just focusing on mostly on unhelpful, so that you get the idea of what not to do. So Originality, sorry, again, I can't even read from here. Okay. So the helpful thinking is convergent thinking and divergent. Convergent thinking emphasizes remembering everything that is known, that is a fact almost, and being able to learn what already exists. It's very linear, and information is sort of fed from a sender to the receiver. And in terms of convergent thinking, there's always like a right answer. Divergent thinking, on the other hand, is the ability to generate many possible solutions. This is why I said in creativity, divergent thinking is something that is very useful. In terms of unhelpful, we have overgeneralizing, all or nothing thinking, awfulizing or catastrophizing, perfectionism, and cognitive dissonance. So thinking about things differently. So again, without going into too much detail, but we have systems thinking, analytical, critical, and creative, leveraging, experimenting, and design thinking. Systems thinking involves holistic approach to thinking about how different parts can correlate, while analytical thinking is breaking down whatever the problem is or the idea into segments or parts. Critical thinking, everyone's familiar with that, is taking into account of wide range of factors or elements when you're evaluating an issue. And creative thinking is obviously mostly popularized by brainstorming and coming up with the ideas. Leveraging, experimenting is sort of exploring connections between the ideas, and obviously experimentation. And design thinking, many of you, I'm sure, are engaged in, is being a part of this process, and starting from iteration and coming up with the ideas, prototyping, testing, and then the implementation. Sperper is a tool. You're familiar with this, right? Are you? Yes. So it's for those of you who are not, it's a excuse me. It's a creativity tool that helps us develop and refine ideas. So it stands for substitute, combine, adopt, magnify, adapt, magnify, minify, modify, put to other uses, eliminate, and reverse rearrange. So you ask these questions to yourselves to provoke sort of ideas that whatever it is that you're working on. And it's beautiful because it can be applied to anything. These are the questions that you ask yourself when you're actually applying this tool. And it doesn't have to be like a creative problem that, let's say you're designing something or you're producing an artifact. It can actually be applied in any context, whatever, decision you have to make, whatever challenge you're facing. So I think this is really useful and kind of simple and straightforward way to sort of, understand how to look at things differently. So talking about creative confidence, obviously we are all creative. We just need to remember it, but we're not all that confident. And the reason why it's actually merged together is because of the fact that creativity is not the way we express ourselves. Creativity is the way we think. It's a mindset. And that mindset is strongly rooted in the way we feel about ourselves. And based on everything that I've talked about, this is where our confidence comes from. They're really, creativity and confidence are in this symbiotic relationship. So this is why there's so much research done, and David Kelly, who's amazing, and he has a great book that I would recommend at the end, talks about this in so much more detail. And, these two concepts feed off one another. as we become better at something, do we start to feel more confident? And as we feel more confident, then that would feed our creativity, and we will sort of start to develop these new patterns of not just thinking, but acting as well. That takes courage, takes guts to, you know, leave that box that we were all part of for so long and do things differently. But in order to do them differently, we need to start thinking creatively, thinking, you know, in different contexts. And then we're going to be able to take more risks, which we will then see, okay, this is not so scary. I've done it. It's okay. And then you'll grow your self-confidence. You get better, and then that's how it goes. I think it's really important to understand, and I always talk about, it's Isaac Newton's, the law of movement, right? Things that are static will always be static unless there's an initial push. So think about it. Where is it going to come from? Is someone else going to help me make that push? Can someone else help me? No, it really has to come from ourselves. So imagine, you know, that little tool, right? Where you have to kind of, you make the first move and then it sets it in motion and it's indefinite. So creativity really helps us, and more psychologists are actually starting to dwell into this concept of creativity, looking at it from the perspective of how it ties into empathy, how does it tie to soul-driven leadership, all these skills, self-awareness, self-analysis that are very much talked about today and can be helpful in order for anyone to understand themselves so that you guys can be more successful and navigate all the challenges. So creative confidence, excuse me, is a mindset. It's our natural ability to come up with, you know, ideas. They don't need to be necessarily always great ideas, and that's the beauty of it. Any new idea is fine, but imagine how many new ideas are actually forgotten about because the person didn't actually have the guts to raise the hand in the meeting, even though they had something to say. They had a brilliant idea, but they just felt like, oh my God, I can't, someone's going to laugh at me. I will sound stupid. I will, you know, it will seem like I'm Miss Know-it-all or whatever, and let it slide. And you stay silent. How many times did you let it slide? How many times will people let it slide? And that's the actual moment. That's that confidence in yourself that it doesn't matter if they turn down your idea. It doesn't matter because you're actually paving the road for someone else. You're actually starting to develop and help nurture this culture where if you do it, there's this whole new movement about, I'm sure you've heard, Brené Brown and vulnerability, and it's amazing. And it's again tied to creativity because creativity is vulnerability, being not afraid to make a mistake, to sort of like even make not a fool of yourself, but what if I say that I'm not good at something, and what's a shame in that? And this is how you build empathy and better culture in offices, because if I'm not afraid, someone will see it and then they will feel more comfortable next time. So if we're all pretending that, you know, we're cool and we're embracing mediocrity, and mediocrity rules still, and this is something that needs to change, and we are the ones who will drive that change forward. Cultivating creative confidence can also be done through self-awareness, and this is where I'm bringing it together, as I said, with concept of understanding your life story, right? We all had different journeys. Who are you? What are you about? What are your values? Where are you going? So knowing yourself, getting to know yourself also really helps you develop that confidence, because remember I said there's a symbiotic relationship between confidence and creativity. So the more confident you are, at the same time, the more creative you will be able to be. So one way to cultivate creative confidence, obviously, from any self-book, to cultivate creative confidence is self-awareness, and how to develop self-awareness. It could be done through meditation. That's a standard sort of approach, and many of you spend some time trying to be self-aware. But my favorite advice that I've received and that I've practiced is actually finding great mentors that you can ask honest feedback from. You wouldn't believe how many people there are around us who are willing to help, who are willing to give you advice, who are willing to sit with you and teach you something new. It's just we never ask. So that would also help you to maybe identify some blind spots, right? That where we all have blind spots. And what is a blind spot? It's something that I think about myself that actually might not be true at all. It's just my opinion. And then when you open up and when you make yourself vulnerable, when other people are in the position to tell you, no, that's not the case, then you are able to develop self-awareness and understand what it is about. How to make creativity a part of your life journey. Creativity is not a small miracle. It's not something you wait for to happen. To be struck by a thunderstorm. It's something that you have to work hard for, and it doesn't just happen to arrive at your doorstep. So what can you do to sort of allow yourself to be more creative and develop this self-confidence? So my 3 tips are to seek solitude. I know that as artists and designers, we love to spend time alone, and sometimes we're weird for other people, but we need that time, and other people would also benefit from that, because only when you have this solitude, you are able to not just get to know yourself, but enjoy something almost like transcendental in that moment, in this world. And creativity is something that really needs to steep, and you need to nurture it, you need to develop it. It can't be developed that easily when you're constantly surrounded by people in the professional or personal environments. So when we're alone, when we can concentrate, we're able to find answers to things that are puzzling, and just think in a different way. So solitude, if you're not sure, this is like a really practical step. Spend some time with yourself, and definitely that will help. Reducing stress is another one that's a bit obvious. When we're stressed out, we're not creative. I even tell my students, sometimes I know it's not something I should say, but it doesn't matter. Like I really do. Like, I understand sometimes when I'm stressed and I'm supposed to do something, I just don't feel like it, right? You're not in that mind space, and it's really, you can force it. You can still do it, but it's not going to be as good. So finding ways to reduce stress, and, considering maybe physical environments or anything that kind of produces that sense of calm would definitely help. And immersing yourself in your world. What that means is that no one can create anything, whether it's an idea or even, like, I'm not talking about just artists, designers, creative people, doctors, scientists, anyone. Not being able to create in vacuum means that we all need inspiration. We all need input. We all need to be aware of what's happening around us. If you're a musician, for example, you have to listen to the music. If you're a writer, you have to read. If you're, an artist, you have to look at art and things like that. So talking about the space, where are you most creative? This is, again, something to consider. Maybe you're not really aware of this, but think about, is it your office? Is it your house? Is it now? It's obviously limited, but there must be moments when you feel particularly more creative than others, and then you just look at it and see if it's when you're alone or when you're within the crowd. Also, the first image here, obviously, we are in this beautiful space, and you can attest to the fact how it boosts the creative mindset and creative confidence. So how it's done, it's, and if you even look around, it's introducing these elements of play. So something that is a little bit more, scattered and playful really helps everyone to feel more creative. And this has been scientifically proven because we associate playfulness with that idea of taking risks, being a little bit more relaxed and not having to fear failure. It promotes interactions and you just, feel confident enough to express yourself freely. So right away, if you're in this, test it. Be in this very, kind of monotonous, cold space and try to do something, and then surround yourself with some, creative objects or immerse yourself in different space and see what happens. This is a guided mastery technique that, again, helps you boost your self-confidence or creative confidence. It's by Dr. Albert Bandura, who's a social psychologist, and he was helping people overcome phobias. And he came up with these 4 steps for promoting creativity that David Kelly as well worked on and embraced. So if you're not able to, or if you feel that you're not creative enough, first step is to witness creativity from afar. What that means is that you go and observe someone expressing themselves, whether they're writing something or, composing a music song or a soundtrack, creating a work of art, doing anything from a different perspective. So you observe them, and it's not about the presentation of the final product, it's about the process. So that process is so important, so that we train ourselves. We look at and we learn the value of the process, and we embrace that experimentation. Then the second step is witnessing in that same activity up close. So it could be a friend or, a family member, or, just maybe even watching a video of someone doing something. The third step is to actually make something. And I'm asking you, I know many of you are designers and are in the industry, do something that you're not comfortable with. Step out of your comfort zone. If you hate cooking and you think you're not good at it, try it. Try something that would challenge your mindset. And then you actually do it. And then you bring in, the fourth step is to bring in people who you trust, whose opinion you trust, and then getting their feedback so that you can actually, retrain yourself, even though it's going to be hilarious, fun, it's going to be a great experience, new experience. But how often do we do that? We always stick to what we think we know, what we think we're comfortable with. And this will actually boost your confidence in the sense where you're going to actually, go over that learning curve and be able to see that you're growing and you're expanding, you're stepping out of your comfort zone, because we're all slaves of our comfort zone. Think about it. So how often do you actually extend? How often do you step out of it? So you can repeat this as many times as you'd like. Another interesting approach is to develop pet projects, and it doesn't have to be just, let's say, photography. In this case, I'm very excited about it, and I love to do it. So let me continue. It can also be something else that you're not good at, that you force yourself to try. That you can make sure that you expose yourself, and in the sense of promoting that work. Again, it's not about the work per se, but you building confidence in starting from doing something that you didn't feel that you were skillful enough, and getting to the point, making yourselves vulnerable enough to show it to the world. So the same feeling will help you in the meeting room when you're about to raise your hand, and then you just think, okay, I better not. So these are all the small steps that will really help you boost your confidence. And leaving your comfort zone. So obviously, as I said, you will become more productive. because you will be more productive, more comfortable with productivity. And you leaving your comfort zone will help you also become more adaptable and grow as a person. So some of you are leaders or in positions of leadership. What can you do to help your employees promote this creative mindset and creative confidence, especially, today when people are also demoralized and we have just gone through this experience, embrace uncertainty. And there's this nice kind of visual example here of the process, how it actually goes from I will not do it and I'm not able to do it, I can't do it, to yes, I did it. It's the best advice is to not necessarily embrace the chaos, but allow chaos at certain time and certain period within the process, so that everyone feels relaxed enough to embrace uncertainty. Encouraging radical ideas during brainstorming sessions, so sort of revamping the brainstorming so that people who give craziest ideas and really think outside of the box are kind of listened to and rewarded. Being new and responsive to these different perspectives, viewing failure as opportunity to learn, understanding that creativity and innovation, it's a cyclical process, and it really entails these small successes and frequent mistakes, so that everyone is relaxed enough to embrace these mistakes and acting on creative ideas and making implementation tangible for everyone to see, so that employees who do contribute with these out-of-the-box thinking approaches and ideas do see their ideas implemented, and that would strengthen the culture of experimentation and risk-taking. The most important thing is really to create that climate of creativity and innovation, and focusing on people more, because we usually, when we think about work, it's the examples of projects and the deadlines or things that have to be considered, client relationships, but we forget about people. And creativity, actually promoting creativity, really means nurturing our human mind and nurturing the mindset, enabling that connection, building empathy, building trust and respect, so that everyone can be free, embrace that fear or reduce it, and it just become playful again. So instead of, I always say I love progressive meetings. I love meetings that are in which we discuss ideas, and we often talk about problems and how to put fires out, right? So maybe making those meetings a point where it's not just discussing problems and how to handle them, but let's talk about what's new. How can we maybe improve something? Let's generate ideas. So it really has to be a conscious effort on how to integrate creativity in the workplace and stimulate people, as I was talking about. We're back to the little test. Anyone wants to try? What would you do? Remember I said, how do you fix the candle to the wall while making sure that no drops fall on the table or on the floor? Let's see your creative mindsets. Oh, you Google the answer? Yeah, possible, but that's not it. Yes?
What's in the box?
It's the pins. You don't see what the little pins for the, well, yeah. Yeah? Yeah,
tie around candle, put thumbtack on the wall, and so,
I don't think
No,
so.
sir.
Yeah.
hello. Hi. Hello. So I think take the wick out of the candle, tie it around the, I guess, the wax, and then put a thumbtack on the wall, and then put the wick of the candle thread.
But if you take out the wick, how will it burn? Because the candle needs to be intact.
Okay.
But good one. But see how I mean, I didn't judge it. I have the right answer, which, you know, now for this opportunity we're using, but anyone else? Okay, I'll show you. Let's see if there are any, okay. Let's try. And how would you fix it to the wall? On the wall. So fix it onto the wall without it dripping, so that it doesn't drip on the table or on the floor. Okay. It's not on the table, it has to be on the wall. Let's see, Omar, if I taught you well.
So you can fix the box with
Oh,
pins on the wall.
yes,
Then put the candle above it.
yes.
You up.
I taught you well. I'm kidding, but yeah, obviously, so there are a lot of these little tests online, and I'm recommending these 3 books. They're some of my favorites. So yeah, take a photo. Creative Confidence is the one that I've mentioned from Tom and David Kelly. They're founders of IDEO, and I'm sure you're familiar with them. Then Ken Robinson, someone I'm inspired by, and he talks about creative schools and what we should do. Hopefully we will in maybe 30, 40 years. And Lifelong Kindergarten by Resnick. It's an amazing book. It really talks about, did anyone read it? Any of these? It talks about the attitude and embracing playfulness. And if we, you know, remember the way we were when we were kids, I know sometimes it's hard, but try to do that. Try to ask one of my favorite questions, and this is what if? You know, what if? What's the worst that can happen? Or like when you're thinking about a problem or a situation, what if I do this? What if? Because when we're always used to asking why. Why is life unfair? Why did this happen to me? Why? But we instead need to start asking what. What can I do differently? What can I do to change? What can I substitute this with? We go back to the scamper, you know, technique. So this hopefully will help you understand the creative confidence and apply it. And this one is for you to make. And as I said, you know, our journey has to begin with the first step, and without us knowing where we're going. And it doesn't matter how old we are. For some it happens at 40, for some it happens at 15, 20, for some never. So embracing the fact that you will be lifelong learners, that it's okay not to know everything at some time. As a professor, I should be always in a situation where I know all the answers. I love telling my students, right? When we were, Nadeem, are you there? Is that you? I can't recognize, I keep looking at you. It's so nice to see you. So I have 2 of my students here. So good to see you. When we were talking, and you always if I can use myself as an example, I love putting myself in a situation where I say, I don't know, let's figure it out together. You know, we're in this together. And when students, we're all people, it doesn't matter if it's students, if what age they are, if it's employees, we're all human beings. We all have the same needs to be understood, to be valued, for our opinion to be heard. And when we create these environments that are nurturing for everyone who are part of them, amazing things happen. And this is actually when creativity flourishes and how we can support it. So I really hope you will be able to explore your lives in a more creative way. Don't think of them as linear. It's fine if you have different interests. It's fine if you try it out and fail and do something else. These are the references, and yeah, thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you so much. That was really,
Did
great.
I go over?
No, not at all. There is
So
no time limit. It's
You
creative.
can tell I'm this boring
creative,
professor.
liberty.
Like
No, not at all. Just one point before I open the questions. I think like your final point is a really great one, which we often forget. As designers, we're the one representing the fact that we don't know it. So
Yes.
having the courage, not just as designers, as humans, that we encourage our colleagues to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's go and find out, as opposed to always having an opinion, always having an answer. It's a really great.
It's so liberating
point on.
because it actually helps you build this authenticity. Are we all perfect? No. Why are we pretending we are? So it's fine to say, I don't know, can you help me? I want to learn. And that creates bond. That creates trust. That creates friendships. It's very simple.
Cool. So did we, well, Nada's asking online if there's any questions. So please, if you have any, then jump in and we'll share them. Is there anyone here who has any questions or comments, observations? Great. I was hoping to hear from you. Otherwise, I was going to pick on you later.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Amazing presentation. So I'll take on your advice and ask a radical question.
Sure.
Somehow it seems to me that, so you surveyed the philosophy of creativity and how they see it. And it seems to me that somehow we're back to the Platonic age, where the only difference is we're replacing divinity with playfulness, with uncertainty, with randomness. And I think we should, and I would like to hear your perspective, we should reconceptualize the way we think of creativity and categorize it. And I'll give you an example. I find it so hard to agree that children are creative. Because in order to be creative, you need to have knowledge. You need to perceive reality in different ways. So they have maybe creative potentiality.
Yeah.
Right? And that's how I think if we segment and categorize creativity, so a child is different from a genius, and I'm different from a genius, right? So I think that's important, and integrating play with thinking is crucial for me.
Absolutely. I agree, and it's a very interesting observation. The way that we say, children, you say that you think they're not creative, and it depends again. And this is where we go back to what I've said at the beginning, how creativity is such a subjective, interpretation, because creativity in this context, when we say children are creative, kind of satisfies this component of divergent thinking, of not knowing what's right, what's wrong. Because when we go through the school system, we are trained, we are taught that there's a right answer and the wrong answer. And this sort of creates this predisposition of all or nothing thinking. Creativity is, when we talk about Da Vinci, for example, and his expression of creativity, which was not something that everyone can relate to. But if we're thinking of creativity as a mindset, which is something that we are now discovering at this day and age, because every time frame carries different challenges. And I think the challenge we are facing now, the way we need to think of creativity is really our problem-solving capacity, our ability to look at things differently, to redefine the norm. because we are celebrating this individuality. You hear about this authenticity. We all need to be authentic. What does that mean? And who are you being authentic for? For someone else to show off as authentic, or to yourself? If you're authentic to yourself, you're then going to invest in yourself. You're going to nurture these ideas. You're going to help yourself build, let's say, a successful career. Look at things from different perspectives, put things in motion. All of that is, in a way, creativity. And I know you're absolutely right. We cannot really align this, what I've just said, to kindergarten children. But if you sit, and I love talking to kids, you know, if you sit with a bunch of 5-year-olds and ask them some serious questions, you would be surprised about you know, their answers and the viewpoints. And it might not be realistic, or we would not be able to put it in practice, but it might lead us somewhere where, and again, judgment prevents us from this, because we are so quick to say, no, that's not possible. That's not how it's done. This is how you should do it. So we live at the time when things have to be reinvented, and starting with our mindset.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
We have
Yeah,
a
I've got a couple of questions.
Cool, great.
Yeah, I don't know if
Working?
this is
There we
this
go.
working.
Yeah.
My mic.
Yours is, I do agree with you. I have a 5-year-old and she amazes me every day.
Yeah.
A couple of questions online. One interesting one. How can I find out if I'm creative or not? How would you answer that?
To the point. Whoever it is, okay. You are creative. We are all creative. And you just need to go through those the steps that I've outlined here. And the guided mastery technique, that's something you can maybe try and see what's going to come out of it. I don't know if you've engaged in any of the similar projects. You can, like I would say the shortest answer is find a way to step out of your comfort zone and think about things differently. Challenge yourself to change the perspective, to shift the way you see things. Say, okay, I walk you know, down this path when I'm going to work every day. Let me take a different road. Let me just push yourself to do something that you wouldn't otherwise. What if I enter here? What if I do this? And do it. And then you will understand that you will start to build that confidence. But in terms of creativity, I will not now say try to paint a painting or, you know, do a drawing. Obviously, and I'm not talking about talent that could be an expression of creativity, but find something that interests you and do the guided mastery technique. Watch someone do it from the far, then up close, then do it on your own, get feedback. And don't stop there. Do it like 3, 4, 5 times. And, you know, then let's say, give it 3-4 months. And maybe, you know, record this journey, either as video or as photos, like somehow document it. After 3 months, sit and look at the results. Look where you've been 3 months ago and how much you've grown. And you will discover that you are creative and 100%. Like what I've talked about, become playful and try to look at things differently.
Cool, great answer. One more online before I just open up here again. Can you share an example of how you tried to build creative confidence for an individual, be it a child, parent, engineer, designer, and what were the challenges and learnings?
Yeah, so all the sort of recommendations that I've shared will help you, and that's why I didn't just put like 3 and this is applicable to all. I'm giving you different examples and different directions so that everyone can sort of, you know, see what feels best. Again, it's very similar to the first question, finding out if you're creative or developing the creative confidence. It's the similar process. So it just depends on what you're comfortable in. If it's an engineer, it could be something related to whatever it is that you're dealing with in terms of content or the field, and challenging yourself, looking at things differently and saying, what if I wouldn't, I know how this should be done. I know what the steps are, but what if I actually try to reinvent them completely? How would I explain it to someone who doesn't have any idea of this topic, and look at it with a fresh mind, with a fresh perspective, and change the mindset?
Cool. Yes. Hold on, just let me pass you mic. You're online.
Hi. Yes, I just want to add something to that. I think one of the key things, and that is permission, is that you have to give yourself permission.
Yes.
And that's lots of people ask for permission as to, can I do this? Am I able to do it?
No.
Yes, you can give yourself permission, give other people permission to do it. People ask all the time, oh, can I do this? How should I do it? That leading people is one of those things. That it's like, I don't know how to do it. And we go, well, how do you think you should do it? Well, what about this? And the answer generally is, yeah, we'll give it a go.
Yeah, and this brings us back to that self-confidence problem, right? Where people are just afraid and they're not used to, because we're creatures of habit. We're slaves of routines, our daily routines, and that's why they're hardest to change. And this is something we have to face. So encouraging people around you, what we can do now, we're having this lecture and exchanging thoughts tonight, but you know, there's something we can all do to support each other and to help one another and to make people aware, people around us, that it's fine to take risks. And they say it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. So I guess, yeah, it goes along the same lines.
First things, thank you very much for organizers for an amazing idea after the pause.
Yes.
In our life connected with coronavirus. Thank you very much for speakers for the presentation. So based on scientific approach, with your good tips that helps people to believe themselves. But my question connected with artificial intelligence, because the main challenge that's coming now is robots and technologies. What do you think how artificial intelligence can replace the people, the human creativities and mind? Because it's coming from, you know, because the problem is actually the fundament of the creativity is coming from family education. It's coming from school. It's coming from education, university. It's education yourself, right? Okay, we can use our tips. It's good. It's very good. But the base on it, it's very fundamental things. It's connected with all the even government programs, right? Yeah. But coming to my question, so regarding the artificial intelligence, what do you think about that things? Okay.
I think my personal opinion, obviously I'm aware of everything you're talking about, and I was dwelling a lot on that in the field of education, and how my answer will probably be very similar. All the teachers, professors, if we don't actually emphasize this importance of human connection enough, we will be replaced very soon, and we will turn into the ones who deploy digital technologies and interpret the assessment data. Robots and artificial intelligence, digital technologies will teach our students. The same way we could say that artificial intelligence will take over and start, creating these solutions for us that would enable algorithms or something else to sort of provide us with interesting ideas and concepts. But I personally believe that it will not be replacing innate creativity, and our, we will still have this desire to interact, desire to connect, desire to exchange ideas, desire to be a part of something that's bigger than us, to have a purpose, right? And it all connects. When we say be creative, find your, become aware of who you are, become aware of what your goal is in life. We all are humans with our own trajectories, with our questions, with our desires, right? So that creativity is one of that need to be expressed and need to be heard. So definitely it will help. I'm not against technology. Technology can be used as a tool to enhance creativity and maybe implement it further. Maybe devices that would help us express creativity, learn about it, applications, it's already there. But making these decisions that are, or coming up with solutions that would be valuable for the world or you know, enhancing society is still going to be, I think, up to people.
Cool, thank you. We've got one final question, but you can still reach out to Zinka at the end and
Sure.
mingle a bit.
I just had a question because you said you think the educational system is killing creativity.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, what do you think are the killers of creativity in schools exactly? What are they doing wrong that we should be identifying and correcting?
Do we have another 3 hours? No. Kira is laughing. She knows my take, but I could talk about this for a long time. My opinion or research general? My opinion. I think it stems from the early education where children, as I said, come into understanding that there's right and wrong answer, that their value is measured through the score on the test. Thinking slowly, getting into thinking that the whole point of education is to pass the exam or ace it or get that degree. And then we end up with students who graduate who have no idea what they want, and you know, they just basically start to think for themselves because they've been part of this system that has led them to believe. There are many exceptions, many wonderful teachers across the world who are, as I said, you know, making meaningful contributions, but in general, their hands are tied because the education system is one of the slowest systems to transform because it's so complex. So it takes decades for the meaningful changes to actually be implemented. So it's paradox in itself. So what we can do is changes have to happen in a way bottom up. We need to, you know, I personally, again, my students are here. I always dismiss grades. So grades are not important. They do give a sense of, you know, standing among the group, but it doesn't really mean anything. And if children are only learning so they could get a good grade, they will never see past that. Tomorrow, they'll only be chasing jobs that pay more. They will not be able to develop these mindsets to enable that creative thinking, everything that I've talked about. So there has to be more emphasis on this intrinsic motivation so that everyone is approached from a more individual perspective. And I know it's easier said than done, but we need to rethink the system so that we allow more interaction. The biggest problem today is because, you know, we would say before knowledge is power. Is knowledge power today? Because it was power because it was scarce. Before, you would have sources of knowledge were the library, a book, and a professor. Is it scarce today? No, they don't even have to memorize anything. Their knowledge is not scarce. So knowledge is not power. You know what the power is and what's scarce? Our attention. So professor's role, the teacher's role today changed. We're not sources of knowledge as much as we are facilitators of learning. So what we need to do is teach students, students, how to learn, how to take responsibility for their learning, how to discover authentic selves, even at that early age, liberate them so they're not labeled right away and they're not brainwashed either by family members or society in general. I'm not pinpointing on anyone in particular, but it's so easy when you're young to start, you know, succumbing to all these pressures. And how does it manifest? As I said, you know, the whole point of this talk, you're then just afraid to stand out, to deviate from the norm in any way. So developing authenticity, nurturing curiosity, talking, being, you know, a mentor, facilitator of learning, someone who would support these children to really discover their passions, and not someone who would put them in these standardized, you know, forms and say, okay, all of you are 15, you're all learning this, and or all of you are 16, this is what you need to do based on this curriculum that someone thought about, I don't know, back then. We haven't changed the system since Industrial Revolution, where education system is the same. And look at the world, look at the attention span of the kids today. They can't, you know, what's the point of having someone memorize something and then it evaporates 2 days later? Because it's a fact. Sorry, I told you I could go on, so I'll stop now. But it's a fact that when you're intrinsically motivated, it means that you're learning because you're really interested and you're passionate about something. And that knowledge stays. When you're extrinsically motivated, when you're learning because I have a test tomorrow, I have, you know, I just need to get it over with and get a good grade, you forget. Try to remember something, like we've all done it. Do you remember something that you've studied only to pass the exam? Versus something that you actually pick up a book and you read and it stays. So that's how schools should be. For those of you who want to know more, there's an amazing, he's a philosopher, Alain de Botton, and he wrote The School of Life, one of my favorite books, and he actually opened the School of Life, where he teaches courses that I love this idea, you know, like how to be a friend, how to choose a partner, how to raise a kid, how to, like, all these useful things that are so needed.
The cards.
Yeah, his cards, yeah, yes. Okay, so I'll stop.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Another round of applause, please.
Thank you, guys.
Zinka. Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for coming. You do, I don't know what the you know, building rules are, but hopefully we won't outstay our welcome. You can ask any other questions. And thanks everyone online for staying. We love the space so much that Lean has agreed to host us back next month. I'm going to do a talk I haven't done before, so I'm going to be going outside of my comfort zone. Thank you for the encouragement. And details will be coming shortly. And again, Dave, Lean, the whole Dana, the whole team at Atelier, really amazing. We love the space, and thanks everyone for coming. I'm just going to final thing, hand over to Lean and a few other points.
Thank you, Zinka. That was really inspiring. I just wanted to invite or extend an invitation to everyone here today. If you'd like to work out of the space, normally we are members only and we are rolling out applications, but you can come and work from here. Usually where you're sitting is a co-working space with desks. We also have space upstairs and there's always events going on. So if you're interested in working out of the space, all you have to do is just book a slot, because we're just keeping capacity in mind. And you can reach out to myself or Dana, and we'd be happy to give you a pass to spend a day here. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Zinka,
It's such a beautiful space.
and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.